Hey, this is Brooke, functional medicine dietitian specializing in fertility, and this is the Fertility Dietitian podcast, where I help you uncover the barriers that are preventing you from optimizing your fertility and teach you how to work with your body to finally take home a healthy baby. Each week, I will be diving into different topics on fertility and sharing my perspective on physiology, metabolic health, nutrition, and lifestyle approaches that have helped hundreds of couples get pregnant even after years of heartache. My goal is to empower you with the knowledge you need to take back control of your fertility. Happy listening. We are talking about a functional approach to a recurrent miscarriage today, really learning about where you can look next if you have experienced one or more losses. If you've experienced a miscarriage, you are certainly not alone. An estimated 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage. There are many factors that can contribute to a loss, with the most common cause of miscarriage being chromosomal abnormality or genetic error. Depending on when the loss happened or keeps happening, we can get insight to where to look deeper as far as female and male fertility contributors. During the 3 to 4 months before ovulation, an egg undergoes a major transformation in size and starts producing much more energy. The egg is essentially genetically reprogrammed, picking and choosing chromosomes at this time. If something goes wrong during this time, there can be chromosomal abnormalities. Similarly, sperm is going to also contribute to genetic errors. The quality of the sperm before conception plays a big role in how successful reprogramming process of the egg and sperm is. So this is once that sperm fertilizes the egg, there's a whole reprogramming process that happens. And if the quality of the sperm is subpar, it's going to contribute to more errors in that reprogramming process once the egg is fertilized. So this means that the preconception period for men is very important for reducing the risk of loss as well. Just because there are things that we can do to reduce the risk of loss, it doesn't necessarily mean that you did something wrong during the 3 to 4 months prior to conception. Supporting egg and sperm quality with diet and lifestyle can help reduce the risk of loss, but it can't prevent it entirely. We can only do the best we can with the information we have, and there's no sense in blaming yourself for what you didn't know before your loss. There is still so much we don't know, and so much that is out of our control when it comes to fertility. Most do go on to have a healthy baby after a loss. Recurring loss is much less common, at 2% having 2 miscarriages in a row, and about 1% having 3 losses in a row or more. The conventional medical protocol is to wait for 3 losses before doing any testing, but in my practice, we test as soon as you're ready. So to do the suggested testing that we'll talk about in a minute, it's 1 blood panel, a urine test, a hair sample, and a stool test. So it's a very holistic approach or deep dive to see what barriers are getting in the way. For the males, we start with the semen analysis, which includes DNA fragmentation. We don't always do all of this. It can depend on many factors, including when the loss is happening, what your lifestyles have looked like in the recent past, and symptoms as well. The type of testing that we run together can uncover barriers in how your body is creating energy and using nutrients which support a quality sperm quality and really an environment that's going to be favorable for creating a tiny human. So the things that we're looking at with the testing in my practice is MTHFR testing, which is a genetic SNP or a genetic variation to how you're able to use certain nutrients. We often hear of folate in reference to this, but it's really going to be involving many more nutrients than folate alone. And these nutrients are really, really important for that genetic programming process of both an egg and a sperm. And then, of course, it comes into play once that egg is fertilized and how successful that continued development is going to be. So MTHFR testing, overall nutrient status and mineral balance for similar reasons. Even if you don't have genetic SNPs or variations that are making it challenging for you to use those nutrients, we still need them on board. So we want to make sure that you're getting plenty of B12 and B6 and choline and folate. Mineral balance is huge, and I will do a whole deep dive podcast very soon on mineral balance, but minerals are required in every cell in our body to create energy. So if there's a foundational barrier in energy creation, it can definitely contribute to higher risk of loss. Nutrient status around iron and what is happening with the function or regulation of iron is really important. Vitamin D, iodine, folate, overall nutrient status is really, really important. And depending on the timing of loss, we learn more about which nutrients are likely coming into play here, and we can individualize that testing accordingly. A celiac screen is always something that I want to make sure has been done. If it hasn't been done in the past, we want to make sure to get that done, because that is definitely involving the immune system, as well as how you're digesting and absorbing a lot of those important nutrients that are required for good quality egg and good quality sperm. If you are eating gluten and you don't know that you're celiac, it impacts many aspects of health, which also impact fertility. Gut infections or major gut imbalances, again, like these things are going to impact how you're getting the nutrients out of your food, which then impact nutrient status, impact inflammation in the body, immune health. The goal is to help the body feel as safe as possible to produce energy and build a tiny human from scratch, which is very, very energy intensive. Immune health, the gut is very much involved in this piece, but immune health can be much broader spectrum than just what's going on in the gut too. So we need to take into account what is happening as a whole with your immune health. Hormones, of course, so full thyroid panel, what's happening with blood sugar and insulin response on a much deeper level than just an A1C typically. We want to dive deeper because it's such a big part of what's happening with that energy creation foundation. Cycle health, of course, we want to be looking at that as well. One of my most recent episodes in my podcast, so scroll back to last week, talked about cycle health and parameters to be looking at. We really clue in more specifically on the luteal phase when we're talking about loss, making sure what's happening with the quality of that progesterone is looking good and there aren't any errors coming up there. Gum and tooth health is also a really important area to consider, and that's not something that I can test. Your dentist is definitely going to help us out there, but by signs and symptoms what's happening with gum and tooth health. Like, do you have a lot of cavities? What's happening with bleeding gums? The health of your mouth directly impacts the microbiome or bacterial imbalance in your gut as well, and can really impact overall inflammation in the body. So our gums are like a highway to the entire body. Our mouth absorbs things really readily. So if what's happening in the mouth is unfavorable, then it can impact our whole entire body and definitely our fertility as well. Toxic burden. So that kind of goes hand in hand with what's happening with gum and tooth health as well, but toxic burden goes even further. Scroll back to my detox support episode to learn even more about toxic burden and detox function. But this is a big one that comes into play for both the quality of eggs that you're able to produce and the sperm quality as well. If we have a lot of toxins on board, it's going to take away a lot of the nutrients that we need to support the genetic programming of the egg and the sperm, and just how safe your body's going to feel to continue to support that development of that embryo. Sperm quality, of course, we can dive deeper into this. Morphology and DNA fragmentation are a couple of the markers that look at quality. So even if count is looking good, if there's a lot of sperm that are swimming well, we still want to know about the shape, which is morphology, and the DNA fragmentation, which is a much more detailed look at the quality of the sperm. And there are things that we can do to change both of those. I do have a couple of episodes on sperm health, including one that is all about DNA fragmentation. So if you know that this is already a concern for you as a couple, then check out that episode to see what you can do about it to continue to reduce risk of loss. Inflammation. So inflammation can come from all of these areas above, but specific markers we want to look at include C-reactive protein and homocysteine as well. So all of these things, and this is not necessarily an all-inclusive list, but these are a lot of the ones that I notice are missed when a recurrent loss panel is done. And even if you've only had one loss and you're ready to test, these are a lot of areas that I would suggest getting checked out as well. Talking to your doctor about blood clotting disorders, genetic screening, and structural concerns like polyps, fibroids, or endometriosis, as those increase risk of loss as well. And holistically, there are ways that we can support all of those things together, but you don't have to wait to get testing. If you're ready to dive deeper after one loss, you do have options. And the most important thing is that you are feeling supported in navigating the best next steps for you. Every woman and every couple is different, and I work one-on-one with clients to individualize the approach based on all of the factors in your health history and what's happened with your most recent loss. Reach out if you're looking to add to your support team. I would love to support you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fertility Dietitian podcast. If you enjoyed it, please leave a review to let me know what topics you want more of or less of. If you want to keep learning, subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out my website for more info on my private coaching program, Master Your Fertility, or my membership community, Fertility Blueprint. And don't forget my digital store. Come say hi on YouTube and Instagram. See you in the next episode.